Hello, everyone. Rob Paneer here. It's hockey time, and that means that there is a lot to do for Field Pass. Plus, I run a ministry, and I'm currently working on my doctorate. I have a lot to do already, but wouldn't you know, my wife would like more than 5 minutes of my time each day. I need to ensure that I am at my absolute best, and this is where Pure Energy has been a godsend. Pure is made of all natural products and helps to boost my energy while also helping me to think more clearly. I am getting more done than ever before, and there is no big letdown with Pure. I get 6 to 8 hours of great energy and clear thinking at a cost that is far less than you pay for store-bought energy drinks. Plus, Pure is actually good for your health. If you're looking to energize your day and get more done, then you need a dose of the Pure Performance. To find out more, go to thepureperformance.com and fill out the request form. That's thepureperformance.com. Someone will get in touch with you right away, helping you to get on the Pure Performance pathway to success.
3 topics, 60 minutes covering the biggest news in the ECHL. This is the 3 Periods Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Matthew Will and Matthew Harding.
And we've done it. We've turned 20 episodes old, at least. Welcome into the 3 Periods Podcast, where we break down what's going on in the ECHL and let you know what to look for in the opening or in the coming weekend. At least I'll try to let you know at least some of the picks to click. We'll get into that a little bit later. Tough week there for MH on the other side.
Yeah.
Whole load of pretty cool stuff that's come out about the ECHL this week. Some interesting stuff to dig into, but also some have to touch on the COVID issue that's starting to affect just more than just the ECHL. Matthew Will, joined by Matthew Harding. How are we doing tonight, bud?
Doing all right, man. It has been a busy week and a half for weather around here. You know, those who don't know, the day job for me works in weather. I'm a failed meteorologist. But for you are in Evansville, and you were near ground zero for those tornadoes on Friday night. Meanwhile, yesterday you needed a boat anchor to be outside here in Kansas as we got whipped by winds of up to 100 miles an hour. So if Mother Nature could just relax and give us some snow, I think I'd be fine.
Yeah, I went to go pick up Kat on Tuesday nights, and as I drove down there, I drove past a couple of the paths that some of those tornadoes took, and
yeah,
I mean, those were full trees. Anything down from a 10-foot tree all the way up to, I saw probably 50, 60-foot trees that were just snapped directly in half, and it looked like a flood had come through, like the way that you see that where all the stuff just gets pushed to the side. It was wild to see. There was trailer tops all over the place. You can tell that the cleanup is the part that hasn't even gotten started yet.
Yeah, and that area is going to get a lot of rain here this weekend. Certainly, our thoughts and well wishes go to everybody who is affected by those tornadoes down there in portions of Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. And if you are in a position to give, please give to the American Red Cross. They do so much for disaster victims anywhere in the United States. And we will put in there in the podcast write-up how you can give to the American Red Cross and help them out with disaster relief and help these unfortunate folks out. I lived through the Greensburg tornado back here in 2007, and I had the chance to walk the streets of Greensburg, Kansas, about 4 days after that tornado wiped out the town. And Mayfield, Kentucky, on Saturday morning, when the first pictures at the light of day came out from that tornado, it was immediately like I was flashing back, and I was on the corner of Main Street and Spruce in the downtown area of Greensburg, looking around, and everything was flattened. The water tower was gone. It was bad stuff. So, our thoughts and prayers definitely go out to everybody there affected by those storms. And if Mother Nature could just take a chill and back off here for a little bit, let everybody
light snow. That's all we need.
Yeah, just give us 2 weeks, and then you can get back to your shenanigans. I think that everybody would be grateful for that. So, pretty rough couple of days here, but we're here to talk about hockey, and you can get your weather fix elsewhere on the podcast universe. So let's get into it.
Yeah, I want to dig into what the ECHL announced Tuesday, and that was the members of both the Premier Hockey Federation and the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association will once again participate in the ECHL All-Star Classic. It happened a couple years ago in Wichita. We had 4 ladies come join us there in Wichita, and one went on to each team, and it was something that not only those ladies mentioned that they loved doing, but each one of the players you and I talked to, the ECHL players, loved the opportunity. They got to play with a lady that was significantly more skilled than they were. They were saying that they were learning stuff from these people who were just making it part of their dream tour that year, where they were just trying to get the word out about women's hockey,
Right.
and probably had no idea they were going to get to go teach some ECHLers a little bit.
Yeah, and that they did. I was really impressed with every single one of the ladies who came in and really held their own in a 3-on-3 tournament. You could tell that they were in great physical shape, that their stamina lasted through the most of the game, because as you and I have talked, that All-Star game here in Wichita 2 years ago was like a pond hockey tournament, just continuous action. So it was kind of cool to see, and it'll be really cool to see these ladies go back in there and put their stuff up against the guys once again. Allie Thurnston from the Minnesota Whitecaps, Jillian Dempsey of the Boston Pride, representing the Premier Hockey Federation, Sophia Shaver from Team Adidas, and Lauren Gable from Team Sonnet are representing the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association down in Jacksonville here in just about a month. So I think it's going to be really cool. And I think you can kind of glean here from a little bit, Matt, that we're going to get back into this 3-on-3 format again that the ECHL likes for this All-Star game. And it's very similar to Wichita, because we have 4 ladies in this All-Star contest again. I think we're headed that way a little bit. But going back to the ladies joining the tournament, you have Isabel Cup champions in there, and women who have played at some of the best hockey schools in North America and have had some international experience as well. This can do nothing but help buoy the ECHL All-Star Classic here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, this is an awesome event. Like you mentioned, the ladies that are coming are uh, ones who have excelled at the highest level over there in the women's side of professional hockey. Allie Thurnston had won an Isabel Cup in 2019 and even holds the PHF single season goals record. She had 24 goals in their 24 game season in that 2019 year that they won the cup. As for Jillian Dempsey, she's the captain of the Boston Pride, also a 2-time Isabel Camp, and is the first player in PHF history with 100 career games and the first to score 100 points.
Wow.
The Premier Hockey Federation is one that I don't think you get to hear as much about. I know that they had some struggles finding a place to broadcast games. They ending up on Twitch for a couple of years and started to get some really good following behind them. And it's great that we're going to get to see 2 of the best of the league come over and participate. And then of those other 2 ladies, Sophia Shaver played 4 outstanding years at the University of Wisconsin, was even on the 2014 U.S. Under-18 women's select team. And then Lauren Gable, like you mentioned, of Team Sonnet. She was the 2019 Patty Kazmaier Award winner, which is basically the women's hockey Heisman. It's awarded to the best U.S. hockey player in college on the women's side. And it's going to be really unique to see how these 4 ladies bounce into things. They did mention in the release that 1 from each of the 2 groups will be on each team, because it sounds like they're going to stick with the 1 team of Jacksonville and 1 team of All-Stars.
Okay.
And they're going to put 1 from each of the 2 groups of the ladies in there. So
Okay.
it'll be fun to see how they jump in and participate, because it's just a ton of fun to see them all have a great time out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this can, we talked with Ryan Creelan about this back here in Wichita a couple of years ago when this was first going to happen here, and he, I think the league's overall mentality when it comes to big ticket events like this is the more eyes that we can draw in here and the more involvement that we can get across all levels of minor league hockey and across all levels of hockey is the rising tide lifts all boats theory. So it's really good to see these ladies coming in, and I'm eager to see what they can do to go up against the guys. And I really want to see what this does for the women's game long term. We saw this just a little bit before COVID hit, and then it all stopped. And now we've seen women's hockey pick back up again, um, but it seems to have kind of, maybe not struggled is the right word, but um, just kind of seems to be a little lost, I guess, in the overall hockey flavor, or where you're paying attention, I guess. I would like to see that more come to the forefront here, and I think events like what's going to happen in Jacksonville next month uh, will serve as the impetus for that moving down the road.
I am sure I probably speak for you as well. The 2 interviews I got to have with half of the ladies who came in the Wichita All-Star Classic were 2 of the best interviews I think I've had in my entire life. You
Yes.
can tell how passionate these ladies are, not only for the game of hockey, but for growing the game of women's hockey. And you can tell that winning a championship or succeeding on the ice is the last thing in their mind. Number one, they want to make sure the little girls at home know that hockey is a sport for everyone and that they've got a place. And it's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
They have pushed so hard to be where they're at. I don't see either side losing here. This is great for the
Oh,
ECHL to encourage this and incorporate it, and it's great for these couple of organizations on the women's side to get this popularity and continue moving on the upward bend.
yeah, absolutely. A win for all sides here, and let's see, maybe if the American Hockey League or the National Hockey League picks up with this in their All Star games here in 2022, just to get just again to kind of help raise the tide a little bit for women's hockey and get that conversation front and center about what we can do as a hockey community to make sure that women's hockey is front and center in every market, in every league nationwide in this country. It needs to happen. It's past time that it happens. And I agree with you. Those 2 interviews that we did, the 4 interviews that we did combined here in Wichita a few years ago, were the best moments of the experience for me, all start to stop here in Wichita a few years ago. Those ladies were impactful, and I was fired up after talking to them. I'll tell you that.
Well, we'll touch on this while we're on the subject, but I'm sure we'll get more into it with our guest in the middle segment. But on Saturday, Laura Schmidline made history, becoming the first female official to ever work an ECHL game. Before that, she had worked both college and Premier Hockey Federation league games and some youth games throughout 2021. We saw the AHL do this just about a month ago now, and it was no surprise that the ECHL was close to back that up. Just like with the ladies coming to play in the All-Star Classic, it's just another way the ECHL is making sure that this is a sport for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations to Laura for becoming the first female referee to ever work an ECHL game. That is a huge accomplishment, and she will go down in league history for that. And yeah, again, goes back to what we said here a little bit ago, that uh, women have just as much of a place at the table as the guys do in this sport.
Well, we are going to be joined by the manager of officiating operations, Stephen Thomson, in our middle segment. We'll talk more with him about that in that middle segment. Our last piece here in the opening period is what's going on with COVID, not only at the ECHL level, but at the AHL, the NHL, and sports across North America and the world. First of all, on Saturday, ECHL announced that Adirondack at Reading was postponed, and Sunday's Maine at Adirondack game was postponed. The Adirondack outbreak, I guess, if you want to say, we don't necessarily know it's that. It looked like it started with 1 or 2 players, and throughout the span of a week, almost the entire team started to go down one by one. Our thoughts with them is that's just awful to see what's going on there. And
Mhm.
then on Tuesday, the league announced that the Friday, Saturday, Sunday series between Newfoundland and Adirondack games had all been postponed, likely for the side of Adirondack. And then yesterday, the league announced that this weekend's Friday, Saturday, Sunday set between Worcester and Reading was now postponed. Those are just this week's postponements. There's been quite a few throughout the ECHL as the season's gone along, but we're now starting to see enough games start to get postponed that we will have to start asking the question of what if a team can't play all their games by the end of the season. Will we have to go to a points percentage or something else?
Yeah, I want to go back to the Adirondack story real quick because Kerry Roberts put something in our internal chat here the other day about this, and this was from Jeff Mead, the team president of the Adirondack Thunder, and he said that 17 members of the Thunder organization tested positive for COVID-19. Those team members include 10 players, 5 in the hockey ops department, and 2 front office members. Mead went on to say that all of the Adirondack players and hockey operations department were fully vaccinated. So back to your question of whether we're going to be able to get a full season in here or not. I think we will. There's enough time built in here into the schedule where if you have to play a Tuesday or if you have to play a Monday game, you can do it. If you're, I mean, it's going to suck playing a 5 and 7 day stretch or a 7 and 10 day stretch or something funky like that, like what we saw last year with Wichita when they were laid off with COVID for 2 weeks, and that went through the entire team. I think that we're going to have those scheduling issues again. I think it's a symptom that is going to get worse before it gets better, obviously, especially with the new Omicron variant, which is, if you read the numbers in Canada, it is, I think I read something in Ontario where it is doubling. The number of cases of Omicron are doubling every single day. And tonight, for that matter, as we're recording this on Thursday night, and you're watching it live Thursday night, the Flyers Canadiens game is being played in front of no fans. So, I don't want to speculate on whether we'll ever get back to fan restrictions again, because that is sensitive to every market in the country, as we've seen over the last couple of months. But this is tough waters. These are tough waters. Hello, Kitty. These are tough waters for the league to navigate through. I think ultimately they're going to get to a position where the schedule is extended out far enough, and we're going to mid-April now, that you can squeeze in these games and you can make them up, provided that there's going to be some tough stretches of play. It'll get done, but I think ultimately that we'll get every single game in this year.
Like I mentioned, it's not just the ECHL that's had awful luck with this COVID thing. The NFL right now is struggling, especially as of just about 15 minutes ago. Cleveland had 8 starters on the COVID list, as well as their coach. The Rams, when I got my final numbers at about 6 o'clock, were at 18. That number went up to 25 in the past week. They had more that they added tonight. And then the Washington football team has placed 17 on the COVID list this week and now have 21 active on that list. Those are just the 3 teams that had the biggest movements today. It's the NFL is having an awful time, as well as the NBA, just in the last couple of days. And I think it's going to you're going to have fans that start to ask the question of what's next. I think Baker Mayfield of the Cleveland Browns came out today and said that we don't need the COVID measures changed. Instead, we need to worry about our players' safety and cancel games. So
yeah,
the NFL looks like they're still going to probably play all of the games this weekend, but there's going to be some very limited staff members. I'm glad to see that the ECHL is a league that's ready to postpone a game and make sure that we're standing up for player safety.
Right. Yeah. And just as we're talking about this, Frank Saravalli tweeted that 4 Colorado Avalanche players have entered into the COVID-19 protocol, including Cale Makar, Darcy Kemper, JT Kompker, and Andre Burakovsky. And they're in Nashville to play the Predators, who you went to go see on Tuesday night and got turned around because Calgary had an outbreak themselves. The Nashville Predators have 6 players and a coaching staff in COVID protocol right now as well. So at some point, you have to worry about whether, to Baker Mayfield's point, you have to worry about player safety and getting these players back to playing a game at 100%. And you also have to worry about whether you have to worry about whether the product you're putting on the field is an entertaining product. I think the NFL is cocky enough to believe that their product will be seen by whoever, whenever it's out there, and people will go and they'll watch the product no matter how bad it is. And player safety be damned. I don't think that is the case here in the ECHL. Kudos to the league. And we're also seeing games postponed in the American Hockey League as well. Kudos to the American Hockey League, National Hockey League, and ultimately the ECHL and eventually the SPHL, because this is all heading south as well, for being on the proactive side of acknowledging the player safety debate and acknowledging that if you have 8 forwards and 6 defensemen and 2 goalies, that's not going to make for a terribly good product.
Absolutely. And I think it's going to be something that we continue to gauge as the season goes on and see how the ECHL reacts with it. I echo your statement there that I think the ECHL has done a great job so far to stick with that. So
yeah, and they've been very quick to pull the plug on games, and you almost have to, because of the travel arrangements that these teams make. You have to have a quick hook on games like that. So kudos to all of the leagues in minor league hockey that are quick to pull the plug on those games in the fairness of player safety.
We'll sound the horn. That's the end of the first period. And we'll flip to our second period, where we're joined by the ECHL's manager of officiating operations, Stephen Thomson. It's like we had just mentioned a couple of moments ago. It's been a pretty cool week for the ECHL officiating crew. Stephen, how you doing?
Matt, Will, doing good. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks very much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about this in our previous segment that Laura Schmeidlin made history Saturday night playing or refereeing a game in Worcester, becoming the first female to ever work an ECHL game. Explain the historical value. We tried, and Matt and I probably didn't do a really good job of doing that. But can you explain the historical aspect of that for your league?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious, historically, being a first of anything is a big deal. Laura handled the situation professionally and courageously as possible. From the league standpoint, it's a step that we've been looking to make, just haven't had the right opportunity per se. We want to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. We want to make sure that the official is ready to develop and get better and go on to the other leagues. Similar goals as all of the other male officials that we had on staff. So we were looking for those right people. We also have Kirsten Welsh on staff, so we have 2 now. She'll get an opportunity to work games this year as well. It just so happened that I heard a little bit of your talk regarding COVID, and that's just the times that we're in right now, and with the officiating is also just as affected. How about that? So we're not immune to the virus. We're not immune to a lot of things, but I had a hole that I had to fill. I was out there scouting in the preseason. I went to Worcester for preseason games, and Laura stood out as the best official, looking to make that next step. So as organic as possible. Historically speaking, yes, it's it'll be something in our books for the end of time, and that's massive. And again, I'm really proud of her and the way she handled it. It couldn't have gone better.
Well, before we get into what you do for the ECHL as the manager of officiating operations, we want to talk to you about your time as a referee. Over 250 regular season games in the ECHL. You were selected to work the Kelly Cup finals in both 17 and 18. I even got to work the 2018 All-Star Classic. You worked quite a few games up in the AHL and spent a few years down in the SPHL, really proving once again that a lot of these leagues are developmental leagues, not just for the players and coaches like Matt and I talk about a lot, but also for the officials. As you look back at your career as a referee, what are some of the highlights back there?
Yeah, well, it's funny to hear you say that. I haven't gone through my resume in a while, but you know what, to be honest with you, I wish it went longer. I think it was, I don't want to say cut short. That's not the right way to put it, but taking this job with ECHL, I think I left the ice probably earlier than most decide to, but it's been a long ride for me personally. Part of the resume there that it didn't explain is, I moved away from home, no different than a junior hockey player would at 19 years old, living all across the country in different provided housing to referee the lowest levels of junior hockey and college hockey all across the United States before ever getting to those leagues, to eventually develop into an ECHL, AHL official. So it's been a long ride. I wouldn't trade it for anything. The experiences, a lot like I'm sure when you interview a player or a coach, you don't regret anything. It's been one heck of a ride.
What caused the decision to retire from the refereeing part of things and move into this role with ECHL?
Yeah, quite frankly, I just wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough on the ice. So I guess I guess management was always the next step. All kidding aside, I guess my dream was the NHL. For me, it was make or break. In the officiating world, at all of the professional levels outside of the NHL, it's really not as glamorous as sometimes it may seem. It's a grind. It's an absolute grind, and no different than the players. It's not for the largest sum of money, so it's not something that you can sustain as a career at the lower levels. You need a primary job first, and then that can maybe be your secondary. So I didn't have that primary job per se. So when I was on the ice in those finals, I had some really good conversations there during Game 6 in Colorado with Joe Ernst, and he knew. I think I made it pretty clear that eventually one day, if I didn't make the NHL, or if the signs and signals from them were that maybe I wasn't what they were looking for, that I wanted to make a step into hockey operations in some capacity. Quite frankly, at the time, not knowing if it was going to be officiating or what it was going to be. But there's not very many jobs in hockey, as you guys know. So when the opportunity did present itself, I went in and interviewed for the position, and then here I am today.
What is the normal day work like? What is the normal work day like for you?
Yeah, so it's ever changing, and especially in these past 2 years. I mean, the job title, the job description has changed. If you would have written my job description, back in 1819, it's significantly different today. Obviously, COVID being on the forefront of all of our minds, and with all of the adjustments and vaccinations and on and on and on. But I think, ask the question again. Sorry.
A normal work day. What is that like for you?
Yeah. So that's right. So it changes every day, right? So, like, for example, tomorrow, the alarm's going off at 3:15 in the morning. I'm jumping on a flight and I'm heading over to Kansas City. So tomorrow's going to be a little bit of a different day, but I would say an average day, if I'm home in my home office, I'm living in Buffalo, New York, so I'm not in the offices in Shrewsbury. Around 8 o'clock in the morning is usually when the phone starts to ring with, potentially this year, unfortunately, maybe I have the sniffles and those sorts of calls, but also from the coaches, discussing maybe some plays that happened the night before, and then reconvening with Joe Ernst, Dan Petrino, and Ryan Creelan about potential discipline that maybe came from the night before, or plays that were sent in. Throughout the day, it's a lot of administrative tasks. Again, I listened to a little bit of Bruce's interview and some other coaches. The job is mainly administrative, making sure that I do their payroll, I do their expenses, I do their assigning, I do their travel. So all the stuff behind the scenes, it's the games are the fun part. So that occupies a majority of my day. I'm also in charge of running their training camp, and it's a lot throughout the year, but just staying organized and throughout the day, and being fortunate enough to still be able to go to games, that gets to break it up a little bit as well.
When you get
and then
a
usually
call,
I was gonna say usually by about 7 o'clock at night, I have 4 screens running and we're watching hockey games.
That's a dream.
Yeah, no kidding.
It gets a little old. I'm not gonna lie. It's every single night. Well, it seems as though during these past 2 years with the schedule. I mean, prior, we were fortunate we have tonight off, and we had Monday and Tuesday as well, which this week was very light for us.
Mhm.
But Joe, myself, we're always watching every single game, making sure that we're aware of any potential situation that may have happened. So with the craziness of the schedule, especially when it changes, making sure we have eyes in every game about 7 o'clock all the way until the last game finishes.
So when you get one of those calls that's, hey, I have the sniffles and don't think I can work, at least we at our level don't hear much of this game's going to have to be postponed because we don't have the necessary officials. So what is your process to making sure you can get a game worked?
Yeah, so quite frankly, we just had a discussion about this too with the officials about, because it's getting to be cold and flu season. It is also a thing outside of COVID. So not all sniffles are COVID, but we need to make sure that we're aware of those issues so that if they do have something, they're not bringing it to the arena. The officials take enough heat. The last thing we need is to be bringing COVID in and causing some spread. So we're very fortunate with the league and with most of the situations where our officials are located and where our rinks are located, we can get them in, see a doctor or a trainer and get tested right away that morning. That's, I bet 98% of the time, that's what we're going to do. Just be precautious, play it safe, go get you tested. And if you're negative, continue on. Obviously, pending it's not a major sickness or anything like that. But, this year, certainly it's no surprise. I think that we've had quite a few positive cases and they're ramping up currently with the rest of the country and the rest of the sports landscape. So scrambling to find somebody who's available to cover that game. Again, we're fortunate. We have a great group of officials who, are always waiting for that next man up mentality. So once somebody goes down, unfortunately, there's always somebody right there ready to jump in the car and go to a game for the most part. But this week, for the first time, actually, we're having a new official who's not from the ECHL work games. It's, because of location in Trois-Rivières, with visa issues, with border issues, we just don't have any other options. So making sure we're communicating with the NHL, the AHL, there in Trois-Rivières, the QMJHL, to see who's available at any time to step in and fill a game.
ECHL Manager of Officiating Operations, Stephen Thomson, joining us here on the Three Periods podcast. You mentioned that you run the training camp for the officials, and you guys did get to work some games up in Traverse City earlier this year. We did a really good feature on that from our crew that was on the ground there in Traverse City earlier this summer. Aside from that group, what goes into planning the officiating training camp for you?
Yeah, so it's, we have a group of officiating development coaches. There's 11 of us on top of Joe Ernst and myself and Dan Petrino in the office. And, working with our competition committee, kind of identifying maybe some topics that need to be discussed. And then, we start off right away with training camp with fitness testing. So we just kind of plan our day, what the agenda is going to look like based on rink availability, where we're holding it. It changes sometimes every year based on availability. So organizing the hotel, their meals, the ice time, the meeting spaces, all the way down to all the equipment that we provide them and the sizes and the booklets and the rule changes and the rule books and, kind of going through all of those things just to prepare for the season so that when they do show up to camp, everything's ready to go. Fitness testing's first and foremost, that we don't even have a meeting before. It's paramount now that these officials are in better shape than the players in most cases. They don't get to take shifts. So the NHL brings in representatives to observe and, for their identification purposes, see who's coming in the best shape, everything down to body fat percentage, along with a bunch of standard combine style testing that the players would go through as well. It's all the same. And then, we just hold meetings on ice sessions. We do some outside of the testing. We'll do some things on the ice, getting acclimated to getting our feet back underneath us. For some, especially in a pandemic year, for those that were living in Canada, had no opportunity to skate. Rinks were closed down all the way to the start of our season. So, again, no different than a coach. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to put them on the ice and put them on the half wall and see what they can do. And we want to make sure we do it smart. But more than anything, it's just about education. What we're going into the year for, what are our goals and objectives? How are we going to tackle a few of what we felt maybe in prior years we weren't really good at? And then also, promoting the positives, what we thought we did well and how we can keep doing well in those areas. So it's 3 days of intense skating, meetings, and the big thing too is camaraderie. We want the group as officials. That's really the only time the group will be together. That same group for sure. Teams come to the rink every morning. They're together. These officials are going to travel across the country and they might not see that other linesman or referee for maybe the whole season, some cases. So for them, it's also about the camaraderie, making sure that we're building those relationships so that when we leave, they can rely on each other too throughout the year, making sure that they're acclimated. So
you mentioned that you're going to go to Kansas City here for the game on Friday night, and then from there your travels I'm sure will continue. But when you're in the arena, what are you looking for from your officials? Are you looking for their position when it comes to making a call? Is it something a little bit more granular than that? What are you looking for?
Yeah, and again, it changes. I don't want to say it changes every night. I mean, we're going to evaluate them on some core principles of officiating, certainly, but at this level, and the fans might not agree, but these are some high level officials who are very capable of their job. So it might be a lot more in depth. It might be something that me and that official are working on directly, whether it is sight lines, whether it is positioning, whether it's maybe just getting out of his own head sometimes. Officiating is a mental game. A lot of it that the average fan maybe doesn't see outside of the basics. Communication. I like to talk to the coaches. I like to talk to the trainers, see what they think of the officials, because communication is one of those things. It outside of their fitness, that's our next priority. If you can't communicate, you're not going to be successful in the business. The job is all about managing expectations and tempers and situations. And if they can't do that, or if they're one to always elevate those situations. So I like to observe all of those things. How do they approach each different scenario, each different situation? But certainly there's also calls. I mean, they're going to make and miss. They're going to choose to and choose not to make some. And it's not that we'll grade them, but I'll ask them, hey, did you see that from where you were standing? Is there a reason you didn't see it? Did you see it? Acknowledge it and say, you know what? I didn't think that was a penalty. So that way I can address the root sometimes, whether maybe you weren't standing in the right spot. Why weren't you in the right spot? Let's see how we can get there to see the call better. Or maybe it was something as simple as I didn't recognize that as a penalty, and we need to change that thought process. Because at the ECHL, we have standards in almost every penalty and situation that we do. So, and obviously different too. You have referees and you have linesmen. Very different jobs, super different jobs in the way that they not only move in position, but communicate and act, and different roles all around the ice. So it's sometimes it's big picture, right? No different than a coach in a locker room. You know what? Maybe we had some failures tonight, but overall, we did a really good job. We need to pound those successes home too. Where other nights, it's certainly me going in the room and letting them know how I truly felt. They need to know that too. And again, I think along with that comes managing their morale. We want to make sure these officials, for the most part, outside of some local part-time officials, this is their full-time job at the ECHL. So we want to make sure that they're not feeling down in the dumps if I did let them know I wasn't happy with things. So there's a lot involved in it. Sometimes it is as simple as, a couple penalties here and there, but everything else was great. And sometimes it's much more in depth. And sometimes, quite frankly, it's, hey, let's talk tomorrow. Let's pull up Zoom. We're all used to it now, and let's go through a few things. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I want you guys to get home safely. So there's a lot to it. But also, like I said, a big part of it too is just being around the coaches and team presidents and the play-by-play announcers and everybody, just to kind of get everybody's general sense and feel about the league and those specific officials. Because not to say I hold it all as truth, but it definitely does play a part.
How much of it do you separate, especially from the coaches? How much of that do you separate as the emotion of the game, and how much of it do you take as a direct criticism?
Yeah, certainly there are situations much more emotional than others. And again, I think every situation, it's the great part about hockey. It all can be so different, and it's also fluid. I think that, you have to listen to their criticisms. If I'm not listening, and if I were just to say, no, we're always right, our team would never get any respect. And I hope that most of the coaches in this league know if we make a mistake, I'm going to tell them we made a mistake. That's the only way you gain respect. We're not perfect. Far from it. We haven't had a perfect game yet. We're never going to. It's impossible in the officiating world. But they're young, developing officials. And, quite frankly, the numbers prove that we move officials on to the next levels. And what we're doing is working. Although every situation not handled perfectly or not every call was made right. I want to walk them through that process. This is what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to talk through. And this is maybe the way officials see it play versus maybe how a coach does. Because the hardest part of it all is, quite frankly, with coaches is the rose-colored glasses.
Sure.
Every coach sees a play through their lens, which is fine. That's their job. It's my job to be the neutral arbitrator and say, well, hold on a second. Let's look at the other side of things too, maybe. And then oftentimes, if you put them in those shoes, they understand. And quite frankly, I think everybody in this league, the only thing we all care about is that they're getting better. Can we learn from those criticisms, and can we get better?
One of the best things that's ever happened for the ECHL was the fact that they could start reviewing goals a couple of years ago. How do you train your referees to look at that? Because you could be in, for the people that we're used to, you could be in Wichita one night, Kansas City the next, and those are very different views of the overhead. How do you
Yep.
train your referees to use those?
Yeah, so the basics of just at training camp and throughout the year, putting out user guides and having them hold the iPad in their hand. Oftentimes, if we have a new official, we'll have them shoot down to the box and check it out and hit the test button and play with it. So at least when it comes to that moment, it's a pretty stressful moment. I'm sure most fans don't see it that way, but when you have thousands of people staring at you, waiting for you to make a call, although it's video, and although in theory they think that's concrete, it's got to be perfect. There's a lot of pressure. So we want to make sure they're comfortable with the device first. But certainly, there's different angles. This year, we implemented the live feed as well, which has helped immensely. And that was just a technical thing that we had to get through with our replay system. So now, especially when we opened up with goalie interference, it's a really hard call to make via just an overhead. We were, in a sense, handicapping the officials to say, all right, well, here's a zoomed in crease. Let me know if you see goalie interference. Well, as most of us know, goalie interference is often at the top of the crease, sometimes out of the crease. And you also need to see where the player's coming from. So adding that live feature also helps. But each rink is like you said, a little bit different. But at the same time, they all have the same principles. You can all see the same angles of sorts. Sometimes you just have to zoom in a little bit more and see.
Do you have another one, Matt?
That was my last one.
Okay. So as we move forward here, we're coming up toward the All-Star Classic here, and then we'll obviously ramp up toward the playoffs and the Kelly Cup Finals and things like that. We see that there'll be a roster of officials for the playoffs and the finals, and then there'll be a roster of officials for the All-Star Classic. How is that decision made, and what do you use? What do you use to gauge who gets those assignments?
So it's honestly a pretty collective process with those 11 officiating development coaches throughout the season. As they see them, they do reports. So we have the written reports on all of the officials to kind of not necessarily grade them, but see how those games went. And then in the midseason, each official, at least on a full-time basis, will get a midseason evaluation handwritten by us and our team, and what we feel though they do great, what they need to work on, maybe what they need to change in order if the goal is the playoffs. So using all of those, and then as we move into the stretch, you kind of get an idea of who is working really, really well through your fishing development coaches, and then obviously Joe and myself being at games. And it's all based on merit. When it comes down to the playoffs, it's who's doing best at that time. Certainly the whole season, the compass comes in, but at the end of it, we need to know that we're putting somebody in there that we can trust, who's got the experience necessary and the judgment to make the correct calls in the playoffs. When it becomes, I don't want to say most important. We always say game one's as important as the playoffs, and it couldn't be more true. But yeah, it's a collective effort. We all get in, and we have conferences, and we talk about who we think is strong and who maybe is not ready for that moment.
We put this to our audience on Facebook and Twitter when we announced that you were coming on the podcast here this evening. Jeff Tinder, yeah, I know. Jeff Tinder asks, what is holding the ECHL back from having 2 referees in every game?
Yeah, great question. And it gets brought up daily almost. There's certainly a logistical aspect to it. I don't know if you did a simple Google search of hockey officiating in America, I think you would come up with a bunch of negative articles right now. Throughout the pandemic, at the youth levels, numbers are down. It's so drastic. It's not even sometimes comprehensible. We're talking thousands in certain areas because, and we saw it. We were affected by it too. COVID. Maybe I want to spend more time with my family and my kids, and not at the rink or traveling, and that ultimately the bottom always affects the top, and that's all the way to the NHL. So having those numbers and things change. I mean, ask your question again. I'm trying to direct this the right way.
They were wondering what is holding the ECHL back from having 2 referees in every game.
Okay. So logistically, where I was going with it, sorry, I'm losing my mind tonight.
You're fine. You have to be up at 3:15 in the morning.
I do have to be up at 3:15. Yep.
You get a pass for that.
I appreciate it. So say, for example, we have 27 teams, 28 teams next year. That's 28 more referees that the ECHL needs probably on staff. Call it 13 more on any given night. So those 13 have to come from somewhere. So where are they coming from? We're pulling them from the college levels. We're pulling them from the junior levels. If we pull them from the junior levels, where are they pulling from? They're trying to pull from the youth levels, right? So the ladder and the way it moves up right now, there's just not enough capable bodies to fill all of those games. So logistically, making sure that not any official will do. We want to make sure we have that mentality. These are going to be qualified officials who are on the game, who are prepared to work ECHL hockey, which I know you both know has been phenomenal. And they have to be prepared for that. So logistically, there's that. And then certainly there's no secrets. It's financial. There's a massive financial burden when it comes to that. You're adding a whole new salary each game. You're adding all new travel, per diem, flights, hotels, all of the things that come with officiating at this level. And that's a massive, massive hike. And, you know, our owners, our governors, we're supported by them. They pay for everything. So there needs to be a payback on all that money. And quite frankly, with where we feel we're at with our staff, I mean, it's, again, in the NHL, AHL, and us, there's more opportunity than there's ever been. Right. So what's that next level? We need to make sure that they're getting the experience necessary too before they come to us. So I'm under the personal premise that one really good qualified official is sometimes better than two maybe unqualified officials. Certainly, if you have two on the ice, you're going to see some things that maybe you wouldn't in a third, but a lot of officiating is managing. It's knowing the rules. It's knowing the league. It's knowing the procedures. So just throwing two out there is not the fix-all for anything. And I think certainly we're going to head in that direction. We have to. With the speed, the skill of these players, you can't ask one official to keep up. It's very difficult. We certainly have tactics to try to help them get into positions, but we have linesmen who cover often on the goal line. We added replay. We're doing all the things necessary, but I also think that there's a massive element of development of being the one official, taking control of a game where we see that the officials that come from our league have success at the American League level, get hired to the NHL. So there's positives and there's negatives. But again, I think logistically, financially, I think that's probably what's holding us back. And, you know, the American League, for example, I think they went 4-man over the course of like 8 years. And I could be a little bit off there, but it wasn't just snap of a finger, here's 4 officials in every game. It was, well, let's implement a certain percentage of everybody's home games. Let's do a little bit more. Let's do a little more. That way we didn't drain the bottom. We need to make sure we're building the bottom as well.
Sure.
So I think all of that goes into it. And I think certainly in the future, you'll see 4 officials. We're getting to that time.
And there will be 4 officials in every Kelly Cup playoff game this spring, correct?
Correct. Yep.
The final question we had from our audience came from Mikey on Twitter, and he asks, what do the off-ice officials fall under your auspice, and the quality of those the quality of the off-ice officials?
Yeah, so I certainly work with them, it seems like daily. Especially now with all the protocols and if they can go see the officials and certain things like that. Joe Babbitt in our office is in charge of kind of managing or overseeing the whole group, but working with them with penalties and changing score sheets and things like that. We do that every single day. And, you know, quite frankly, they're probably, outside of us being the most thankless, it's probably those officials. They do so much for this league for so little. If you really think about it, the stats that they keep, that's history. That's how we nominate Hall of Fame. That's how we do a lot of our things. And that's how players get their call-ups, if they get the proper assists and proper points, and, you know, for others, maybe proper penalty minutes. All of that plays into it. And they are an extension of the on-ice officials. You know, we have a call with them every year and make sure that they're aware that you're on our team. So if you have any issues with players or something, you need to let us know, and we have your backs and you have ours. And we still have goal judges. We still rely on our goal judges in every arena. We want to make sure we trust them. We have relationships with them. It's not like it used to be with the old homers behind the net, always just chucking the light on for the home team. But yeah, definitely the quality of our off-ice crews are unbelievable. And I think, again, that proof is no different than anything else. If you look at NHL crews, a lot of them came from ECHL experience.
Well, our extreme thanks to you, not only for joining us tonight, but for everything you've done for the ECHL, not only as an official yourself, but now stepping into this managing role and helping us have hockey every night.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Have a safe flight tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Hopefully see you soon. See you in Jacksonville.
Hopefully so.
All righty.
All right. See
Thanks,
ya.
guys.
That is Stephen Thomson, the manager of officiating operations, or officiating operations as it's known, from the ECHL. What a tremendous conversation that was.
Absolutely. There are very few people, if any, that you'll talk to in the ECHL that work with the ECHL, who are not characters like that. It's something that you and I haven't spent enough time talking about, is the development of the officials as well. We talk a lot about the coaches and players, but truly every single person who's a part of this league at any level, on ice, off ice, is doing it because it's putting them in the position to move to the next level. And when you've got guys like that who are leading you and have used it as a springboard. I mean, he almost did 60 games in the AHL as an official, so he's been there before. He knows what's up, and to have someone like that leading you puts you in a good place.
I think what stood out to me was that, when you asked him, like, what led you to hang up the skates, and he was blunt about it. I wasn't good enough. And the opportunity opened up for him. I think that takes a tremendous amount of confidence to look within yourself and go, you know what? I'm not what they want. And here's this other opportunity. And I think that I can carve out my path over here, and I'll go over here and I'll do that. And I think he's done a really good job of carving his path in a league that wants to develop officials, and being an official at any level, whether you're a softball umpire, or you're a football referee, or a basketball referee, or a hockey referee, wherever you're at whatever level, that is a thankless job, and he gets to lead a really good group of officials, both on the ice and off. And I think that takes a tremendous amount of confidence to look in yourself and say, you know what, I can do a good job leading this group, and he has.
Absolutely. The ECHL is in good hands at the officiating level, at the top of things, and at a lot of the team levels as well. It's a real good outlook for the next few years.
One of the things I wanted to ask him about was refereeing the World Junior Championships. We didn't get to do that, and we're coming up on World Junior Championships time, which I think gets started next week or even next weekend. But I mean, he's refereed some of the biggest games in junior hockey, both in Buffalo, where he's at, and then over in Slovakia, and then he refereed games in Mexico City as well. So we'll have to have him back and ask him about that a little bit later in the year.
Absolutely. Well, we'll sound the siren on period 2 and get over to period 3, where we've got a couple picks to click for this week, and play a quick little game of hot and not and sign trade wave, and we'll get right into it with who's hot right now and who's not. And there has been a fair share on either side of it. I mean, we've gotten to the part where you and I at least thought that we had quite a few of the teams that were supposed to be, or what we thought were playoff teams, were really starting to distance themselves. And now some of those teams are having some hiccups.
You wonder how much of this is COVID related.
Yeah.
Especially, maybe one of those teams are, and I'll let you address that here in just a moment. But I kind of wonder how much of this is a little bit of COVID and a little bit of injuries and call-ups as well, because we talk about the SPHL being decimated with call-ups, and a lot of those players coming on to ECHL rosters. And now you're seeing a lot of ECHL players going up to American Hockey League rosters and filling out spots there as they deal with their own COVID situation up in the American Hockey League as well. So, I wonder if we're not going to see more of this ebb and flow, if you will, here over the next couple of weeks. But I'll give you my hot teams right now here as we sit on the weekend before Christmas. I'm going to go with Trois-Rivières in the North, 9-1-0 entering play this weekend in their last 10. and they went into a place that a few teams have had success in earlier this year, but not a lot. And they went into Newfoundland and won a game late last Friday night against the Newfoundland Growlers. 9-1-0 are Trois-Rivières. They are 5 points out of first right now, sitting firmly in that second spot rather, in the North Division. And don't look now. The host of the ECHL All-Star Classic here in a couple weeks, the Jacksonville Icemen, playing red hot hockey as well, 8-2 in their last 10 games. They are 1 point behind Florida for the South Division lead right now. 13-8-1-1 are Nick Luco's boys. They're in Jacksonville, winners of 4 straight right now, and they got a shutout from Charles Williams in net the other night. This Iceman team is not Jason Christie's Iceman of the past, and I think that this team may have some legs to sustain this as we move forward.
Yeah, I want to echo the Trois-Rivières. I think the heater that they're on right now, they got off to a really tough start to start the year, and I mean, a lot of that wasn't even their fault. It was just that you open the year playing what was probably the best team in the ECHL. I think 3 out of their first 4 times were against Newfoundland, and
yeah,
that's a tough way to start the year. They found ways to be successful as they've continued, but in a way to stick away from your 2 hot teams. My first one is Wheeling, who's 7-2-1 in their last 10, and those 3 losses, 2 of them are against Cincinnati, and one of them was a real close game with Fort Wayne. So in the grand scheme of things, that's a Wheeling team that is sticking in their spot right now in a loaded Central Division.
Yeah.
And just sticking in there. I believe they're still at the 3 spot as of tonight. They are.
Yep.
And they're going to be a team that is just going to pry at you to stay near. I think everyone in any division of sport can tell you that it's most important to beat the teams underneath you in the standings, and they've done that outside the 2 losses to Cincinnati. So they've done a good job of making sure that if it's a game that I say should win, you can't really say that in this league, but when you look at it on paper and say this team's under you in the standings, you need to win those games. They've done it when they've needed to. So
yeah, and that Central Division, to your point, is jam-packed. Toledo to Kalamazoo separated by 5 points in that division, and it's 12 points back to the Indy Fuel in 7th, who made a host of trades this week looking to shake up that roster, as the Fuel are out to a 6-11-2-1 start here through the first 20 games of the year. That is a really good call on that Wheeling Nailers bunch. I think, to a man, I don't think you and I came into this season with a whole lot of hopes for this Wheeling Nailers club, but to see them sitting there in 3rd in a playoff position as we approach Christmas says something about the work that Derek Army and group have done out there in Wheeling. And they're going to be without Patrick Watling again this weekend. He went up to the American Hockey League with Syracuse. So that's going to be a big loss to lose their big scorer, Patrick Watling.
My second team is currently the team that doesn't get to play hockey, and that's Adirondack.
Yeah.
On a 5-game winning streak and 6-4-0-0 in their last 10. So the opening half of that 10 was not great, but before all this COVID stuff hits, they were playing good hockey, and they were making teams in the North play their style of hockey. And it's unfortunate that COVID hit when it did. The big question will be what happens next once they've started to come back from COVID. Are they able to pick up where they left off, or is it going to take a little bit?
That is really the great unknown, isn't it? Like when you come back from COVID, how are you playing? And we talk about this all the time. Like you and I intimately covered the Wichita Thunder last year, and the game that they came back from COVID from was a Sunday afternoon contest against the Indy Fuel. And I believe it was either a Sunday or a Thursday night game. But the Thunder had no business winning that game. And to a man, Coach Bruce Ramsey told us that. He was like, we had no business winning that game. We were so out of shape. My players' lungs were burning and all of this. You just don't know how you're going to be affected by this when you come out of it. Hopefully, Adirondack are not able to don't take too many steps back, and that they're able to get back on the horse and get back to their winning ways here when they come back to play here in about a week or so. But you just don't know. I would say that they would take a little bit of a step back, but we saw it with Wichita last year, and you thought that surely that they would, you and I thought anyway, that they would take a step back, and they didn't. They just kept going.
Well, it certainly doesn't get any easier. If they're able to come back, they're slated to resume their season on December 27th after the Christmas break. They play Trois-Rivières 3 of the next 7 games.
Ooh.
Or I'm sorry, 4 of the next 7 games.
Hmm.
Those other 3 are against Newfoundland, Maine, and Reading. So that's how it is in the North Division. There's no night off.
No.
So if they're able to get back into it, they're going to have to travel to Trois-Rivières on that Monday night and make something happen. But at the time standing now, they're a hot team in the NHL or in the ECHL, at least prior to their hit with COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are your not teams right now?
Well, there's one that I know we agree on, and that's it's been because of some injuries. It's been because of some of that. But I think that the main reason that I have Wichita as one of my not hot teams is because of the 3-game slate against Allen. That's an Allen team who has been kind of all over the place this year. When you've got a top line that consists of 2 of the older players in the ECHL right now who hadn't played hockey in a little while, it took them a while to get back in the swing of things.
Mm-hmm.
Both Jack Combs and Chad Costello are putting up proper points, exactly what we expect. But that's a Allen team that a lot of games has been proven that they're not necessarily one-lined, but there are opportunities to take advantage of some of the play of the Allen Americans, and Wichita was not able to do that in any of the 3 games. And I think the 3-game losing streak to Allen, at least, and the 5-game combined is why I have Wichita on my not hot list, or my not hot list.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other team is Maine, who is 2-6-1-1 in their last 10. A Maine team that started out the year in a decent place. They were fighting with some of the bigger dogs there in the North Division. Started out the year with a couple of strong performances against Worcester and Reading, but now they've slowed down considerably. It probably doesn't help that they've had a couple of games canceled because they were supposed to play Adirondack once or twice here and there. But this is a Maine team who's not been able to get things figured out right now.
I agree with you on Wichita, and I will give you this stat. During the 5-game losing streak the Thunder have been on, they have been outscored 22-10 and have given up 4 goals or more in 4 of the 5 games. And if you look at the goal differential for the Thunder, at one point in time, this was a team that had a goal differential of around plus 25. That goal differential now sits at plus 3. So the defense for Wichita has been just as bad as the offense has been for the Thunder, and they're not getting good goaltending right now from Evan Beitenheis or Jake Toit in net for the Thunder. I know that they've been, they're missing their captain, Alex Peters. They're missing Matteo Gennaro, and they're missing Tim Soderlund up front. But Bruce Ramsey has to do something to shake up this group. You simply do not know when you're going to get those players back from Bakersfield. There are rumors of players coming in to join the group. We'll see if that happens. But I think right now, if you're a Thunder fan, you almost wish that the Christmas break begins tonight, not Sunday afternoon, so that way you can just go home and figure out what's next for this club.
On the bright side, when you hit Sunday afternoon, you've played the Utah Grizzlies all you have to the entire season.
Exactly.
So that's at least one benefit, because that's a red hot team that I don't want to be playing throughout the rest of the year.
Well, and you don't see Trent Miner the rest of the year either, which for the Thunder, that is going to be a huge plus. That guy has 2 of his 4 shutouts against Wichita so far this season. The other team for me that I am looking at is on the not side of things are the Norfolk Admirals, who in their last 10 contests are on a 4-game losing streak right now. And in those 4 games, the Admirals have been outscored by a total of, let's see, that is 22 to 7 in those 4 games so far here in this 4-game losing streak. Math is hard for me sometimes, but I'm pretty sure it's 22 to 7. Anyway, the question I have with Norfolk, and I think you and I have talked about this at various points along the way this season, is whether the defense whether the defense in a football term could get the stop that they needed at a crucial point of the game, and have that turn their way. And so far, they haven't. And I wonder if maybe we're starting to see that house kind of crumble a little bit for Norfolk.
Yeah, and we keep saying this about individual divisions, but every division is really strong. But
Yeah.
with the way that Greenville and South Carolina have come out of the gate as currently the bottom 2 teams in the South Division, it gave Norfolk an opportunity to continue pushing at a really good opportunity for them, sitting in the top 4 in a playoff spot a couple weeks ago, and now they've slowly fallen down as this Atlanta team has stayed a wild card in every single game they're a part of. And at some point, you have to. I think you brought it up great. You have to question when the offense can really stand up for Norfolk. It's been one that's it's pretty spread even. They've got a lot of guys who are contributing offensively, but there's not the 1 or 2 guys to really stand up and lead offensively and help them through some of those tough games right now.
Yeah, and then you look in net as well, and the goaltending for Norfolk not getting a whole lot of help by their defense right now. Beck Warm has had a pretty good start to the season, but in his last few games, he's racked up 4 straight losses and has allowed 7-4-3-3 in his last 4 starts. Those aren't good numbers. And then Dylan Wells has struggled this year, 391 goals against average for him there in the Tidewater. So at some point you have to look at the Norfolk defense and kind of wonder, like, when is somebody going to step up here and make that stop, because you're not going to win. You're not going to get into the playoffs with a significant goals against disadvantage. If that makes sense, if you're not going to make the playoffs with a significant goal differential negative. And right now they have the worst goal differential in the South Division, -16. Changes have to be made in Norfolk, but again, they're part of the Chicago affiliation with Carolina, and Carolina is going through COVID right now. And so that's kind of a weird situation. You wonder, when they get those players back, are they going to be able to pick right up where they left off?
Life doesn't get much easier for Norfolk for their next 6 games against Wheeling. After those 6 games, they've got 3 against Jacksonville. It certainly doesn't get any easier for the Admirals.
It feels like for the Admirals that they're kind of at an inflection point in their season. I don't want to say that about Wichita, because we know what the Thunder are capable of. With their team, they are capable of playing lockdown defense and getting great goaltending and putting it on you on a given night. I haven't seen that from Norfolk so far this year, and it feels like that this stretch here surrounding Christmas and heading toward New Year's may be an inflection point for the Admirals this year.
Yeah, it's time to start looking at some of those. The 3-game skid against Florida certainly didn't help things.
Yeah.
I don't think, especially getting shut out to end that series. So it's a Norfolk team that just has some questions going into Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that'll drive us into our next little piece here in the third period. A little one you threw together with the top scorer, top defenseman, and top rookie in the ECHL on a sign, trade, and waive.
So this is kind of born off of a podcast that I was listening to at work the other day. Of whenever I think it was Monday. But anyway, you have to sign one, trade one, waive one, and I'm going to give you T.J. Hinsick, the league leading scorer, Charlie Day Astu or Charlie Edward Day Astu from Utah, the top defenseman. He's up with Colorado, but we're just going to put that on the side. And Chris Bennett in Iowa, the league's top rookie. And even though we went with Chris Bennett in Iowa, and I know that there's another Grizzly up in front of him points wise, I wanted to go one from every team. So you have to sign one, trade one, waive one, go.
Well, let me start with saying I don't want to waive any of them. I know I have to, but
you have to.
I'm signing Day Stu right away. He's been exceptional for Utah so far. One of the pieces that probably doesn't get as much said about him as he probably needs. He makes Trent Miner's life easier. I want him on my squad. I think TJ Hensing at the current time right now, you can throw him on a couple different teams in this league, and he will immediately make a difference for that team.
Mm-hmm.
So I want him to be the one I'm trading because I think I can bring in valuable assets for him.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not many teams who will say, no, we don't really want him. Unfortunately, it leaves me waiving a rookie who has been exceptional to start the year in an Iowa team that's needed a leader, and he's done a good job of being one of those leaders.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tough exercise here, and I approach this from the aspect of if I'm starting a franchise tomorrow and I have all three of these players, and I have to make a move because I'm at the cap, what do I do? And we've had Dan Watson on the podcast this year, and he's raved about his captain, TJ Hinsick, and the kind of person he is in the locker room and the kind of leader he is on the ice. Never mind the fact that he puts up 31 points in 20 games, which is sick. 145 points in 124 ECHL games. So never mind that. You're right on the fact that if you move TJ Hinsick to any of the other 26 teams in this league, you're going to get a tremendous trade value for him. But for me, if I'm starting a franchise right now, I want it to be led by somebody who's been through the wars and can help the players develop. I'm going to sign TJ Hinsick. That leaves me with a trade and a waive. I'm going to trade Chris Bennett. And I go for the same reason you did here, because I think a rookie who is in the prior to his call up to the American Hockey League was in the top 10. He's now 20th in league scoring, 21 points in 14 games. And oh, by the way, even though he's a -2, he's a -2 on an Iowa team that has had a rough start defensively. So I know if I'm a coach, I'm sitting out there, and if I see Chris Bennett's name on the trade wire, that is a player that's going to get returned for me. So I'm going to trade Chris Bennett, which means unfortunately I have to waive Day Stu in Utah. I don't want to, but I feel like if I trust my farm system, I feel like those kinds of players grow on they don't grow on trees, but I feel like I will get one of those players from my American Hockey League affiliate. So I can trade him and sign and trade the other two.
I like it. I don't want to. Doesn't seem fair. We should have to waive one of them, but that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
If here's a question for you, and I was in this kind of the whole starting a franchise deal leads me to this question. Of all the active coaches in the ECHL right now, you're starting a franchise tomorrow. Who do you start a franchise with as your head coach?
I like the name you just threw out there. Dan Watson has done a tremendous job year in, year out, no matter who the players on the bench are.
Right.
He's done an exceptional job at this level. I think he's going to be one of the next ones if he wants a call up that is probably in line for the things that he's done with the Toledo team this year after not participating last year. And like he mentioned, really having to build from the ground up has been really incredible. And they get to host the Winterfest, which is going to be one of the coolest events of this holiday season.
Mhm.
I want Dan Watson to start.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think you share in my affinity for both Bruce Ramsey and Steve Martinson. I think you and I both
Absolutely.
agree on that. But I would not start a franchise with either one of those gentlemen. I would start it with Ben Boudreau.
That's a good one too.
He comes from a coaching pedigree. His dad's up with the Vancouver Canucks. Um, a guy who just does it the right way. And you look at to your point about Dan Watson having to build a franchise from the floor up, essentially in this offseason. Think of what Ben Boudreau had to do in the offseason last year. Well, there wasn't even really an offseason. They didn't know until about 15 minutes before the press conference what they were doing.
Yeah.
So how do you assemble a team to get ready to go in essentially a month? And that's what he did. And that team went off and won a championship. Uh, the coaching that he's able to do, the coaching job that he was able to do last year was so underrated, I thought. And he earned those accolades of being a Kelly Cup champion head coach. And the players that I talked to and that we've talked to all love playing for him.
Absolutely.
We heard Shane Albarani last year talk about how these guys would run through a wall for Ben Boudreau, which, by the way, we got to have Shane Albarani back on the podcast here. I'm starting a franchise with Ben Boudreau as my guy behind the bench.
I love it.
All of his intangibles, like and there's an SPHL coach who we don't talk enough about. Obviously, this is not an SPHL podcast, but he's racked up titles in one of the fastest growing hockey markets in North America, and that's in Huntsville. If I'm starting it with Ben Boudreau as my head coach, Glenn DeTulio is his assistant from the Huntsville Havoc. Those two are guys who have the respect of every player in their room, and they do it the right way.
That's a first-year playoff team there.
Bingo. We're going to win it, baby. Unlike my picks.
Well, yeah, I guess that's one way to lead into it. Tough week for old MH over there in the pick.
Yeah. Bad
yeah.
news.
1-4 for you, 4-1 for me. Much better than I thought I was going to do. I thought I took a couple of risks last week, but I guess they played off. Whoever's in charge of determining if we should be able to bet on ECHL games, it looks like I need it sooner rather than later.
You got
brings us to 17-12-1 on my side, 13-17-1 on your side, and it's a couple of interesting matchups this week that you bring to the table. First, Friday night between Toledo and South Carolina.
Yeah. I go back here because this is, a rematch of that epic Eastern Conference final from 2015. And I guess that I get that they've played a few games between there and now, but that was just an epic Eastern Conference final that saw South Carolina go in there and advance and play Allen. And that was, I think, title number 4 in a row for Allen there in that run. But you come into this contest, South Carolina is reeling a little bit. They did not have a good trip to the Northwest and Boise, and let me down playing the Idaho Steelheads last weekend. Sitting last in the South Division at 0-3. Toledo comes in 7-2-0-1 in their last 10. Give me Toledo here. I think that Toledo's a little bit more put together right now than South Carolina.
The words that you said perfect were right there at the end. Toledo is put together right now, and South Carolina is still searching for answers. I think that's the biggest difference between the two. Caden Fulcher between the pipes for Toledo had been incredible in the games he's played. Certainly made it easy for Toledo to stay in contests. Currently this year, he's out to a 4-3 0-0 mark with 2 shutouts. Half of his wins are shutouts, and I think that the play of him between the pipes for Toledo makes it easier for them to snag a win or two against South Carolina.
I will say this. Toledo's missing Josh Dickinson and Matt Berry due to call-ups. And Dickinson right now, 26 points, is good for 5th in the league. Matt Berry, 24 points, tied for 8th best in the league with Patrick Watling and Wheeling. I wonder how much the Toledo offense is going to suffer, but I don't think that they're going to suffer enough that they lose. I think that, Caden Fulcher and the defense there for Toledo are going to play some stout hockey, and they'll get the timely scoring that they need, and they'll upset the South Carolina Stingrays.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. It just that one feels right.
Yeah.
Up next, a interesting couple of games for Allen heading down to Orlando this weekend. We've got the opening of the 2-game set on Friday nights.
Allen is not a good team at home, and they've struggled at the formerly known Allen Event Center ice, 2-4-2 on home ice. Orlando comes in with a 3-9-1 mark on the road. So this is a bad home team versus a bad road team to finish out the Friday night slate for us. Man, when you look at it on paper, Orlando does get their leading scorer back, but Allen just seems to be hitting a different gear. And you brought it up last week, and I thought you brought it up and you hit the right note. You don't want to be the team that the streak starts with, like Wichita. You definitely don't want to be the team that continues the run, like an Orlando team. So, but I mean, I can't knock what Allen is doing right now. That offense is humming. They lost Luke Hinman, who had a handful of goals in about 3 games for them last weekend, but still Chad Costello, Jack Combs, Spencer Asachuk, Gavin Gould. Those are some players on that lineup. Give me Allen in this contest Friday evening.
Yeah, Allen went on the road to Idaho, took 3 out of 6 points, came home, lost to Rapid City, then hit the road to take on Wichita, wins all 3 games against Wichita, and is in a place now that I don't think that the home record matters as much. I think Allen's hit a stride now, the one that you and I expected to come at some point.
Yep.
They've finally started to fall into it. That's a train you don't want to be standing in front of.
No.
Orlando is on the wrong side of the skid, losing 4 of their last 5, including a 7-2 loss on Saturday against Jacksonville, and the Friday the night before, a 4-0 loss to Atlanta. That's an Orlando team that's been popped in the mouth a couple times, and I think Allen does it again on Friday night.
Yeah. I think so as well. Man, you're right. You don't want to be standing in the tracks of that Allen team when they get on the ice and they get going on Friday night. On Saturday, the South Division, your Atlanta Gladiators,
Absolutely,
Matthew
Ride or
Will,
die.
taking on the Florida Everblades. You lead off here. Who you got?
Hey, Atlanta, if I got a blank background behind, if you want to help, hey, it's all yours if you want it.
Maybe our owners will send you a nice Christmas present with the podcast logo and the Atlanta Gladiators.
The Atlanta on one side and the 3 periods on the other. I love this Atlanta team because of what they do night in and night out. At the beginning of the year, you and I had mentioned this is a South Division. We're going to see the 4 teams probably distance themselves away from the rest, and Atlanta took that personally. And they've found ways to win really big games, maybe not for them, but they were big games for the opposition that needed a couple of wins down the stretch, and they found ways to just sneak wins here or there. Uh, just in the last week, a 4-0 win against Orlando, a 6-4 win against Greenville. They did drop their most recent two contests, but uh, they go into opposing barns and wreak havoc, and they're a team that has a little different something every night they play, and I think that's what makes them uh, just a little bit different than the rest. Tyler Parks in net, a great guy to have back there. 9-3, 2-0. He is 205 goals against average, which is exceptional, and a 930 save percentage. I love what we're seeing in Atlanta, and I'll probably ride with them most of the year, just because of that it factor they have, and I think they can keep that going against Florida.
Florida is 1-1 against the Atlanta Gladiators, 1-0-1 against the Atlanta Gladiators this year. I need to make up a 4-game deficit here somehow. And by you and I agreeing, that's just not going to happen. So I'm going to take Florida in this. But I also, when I look at goals for and goals against, this Gladiators team right now, Atlanta is playing pretty good defense. This is going to be a defensive contest. Atlanta allowing 2.73 goals a game, Florida at 2.74. Florida is the more offensive club at 3.3. I think whoever gets to 3 goals in this contest wins this game. And I'm taking Florida in it. And that'll be 3 games behind for your boy. Thank you.
Well, that'll be a fun one, and we'll end Saturday with Cincinnati and Fort Wayne, a Cincinnati team who, like I mentioned, it played a couple strong games against Wheeling and are in the right place, at least right now. Who do you like there?
Man, this Central Division, as we talked, is so jam-packed. Cincinnati could go from 4th to 2nd, or they could go from 4th to out in the playoff picture in the Central Division, and it's way too early to talk playoffs. I think we just need to enjoy this game for what it is, and these are 2 really good hockey clubs right now. Fort Wayne is battling some injury and COVID issues, but they're still continuing to have a really good defense. They allow 2.45 goals a game. Cincinnati, for their part, 2.91 goals a game. The Cyclones, with a top 10 offense in the league right now. Fort Wayne, surprisingly, scoring just barely over 3 goals a contest right now. So for me, I like Cincinnati in this contest. They're getting Matt Robinson back from up in Rochester, and he got lit up the other night. And I think if you're looking to rebuild a goaltender's confidence after he gets lit up, put him back in the ECHL, and that's going to be the spot for him. And I think that's that you're going to see Matt Robson really get going back here with the Cincinnati Cyclones here. Yusuri Hirano, 25 points in 21 games for him. He's been the offensive spark plug for this Cyclones club so far this year. Give me the Cyclones on Saturday night.
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me because this is a Cincinnati team who is very bought into the first goal matters thing there. When they're leading after the first and second, they're undefeated. When they are trailing after the first, 2-7-0, and when they're trailing after 2, 1-10-0. That first goal matters more than ever in this one. But I think that the fact that the game is being played in Fort Wayne does the Comets so much good. I haven't got to go to a game there yet, but the people of Indiana that I talk to about hockey say if you have the chance, you've got to go to Fort Wayne because it's one of the most unreal places I've been. I think that's going to be the small difference maker in this one. But let me also add, it's the first goal that wins it.
Yeah, man, you just can't beat the Jungle on either a Friday or a Saturday night.
It's on the list to get done here in the next couple months. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think you may just win that game Saturday night. I'm not changing my pick because I can't do that because you'd hang all kinds of crap on me. I'm not changing my pick, but I think you might win.
It'll be gritty though. We'll at least have a good one.
That's right. That's right.
Well, welcome back to Picks to Click Orlando. who is just going to hang out here in the Central Time Zone for a little bit and
Right.
play a Tulsa team who is maybe on a stretch they don't really like. What do you like in the matinee?
Well, normally I don't put in teams twice in the picks to click, but um, the Sunday slate of games left a little bit to be desired. You and I don't pick Wichita because we cover the Thunder for the site, so we don't do that. So, I mean, all things being equal, we probably had to go with Tulsa and Orlando. That said, if we look at Allen Orlando on Friday night as being as being the you don't want to be on the train tracks for this, or Tulsa comes in having lost 3 straight. Orlando, as we talked about, has their own skid. Man, I'm going to take Orlando simply because if I'm a road team, I want to win that final game before the Christmas break. I do not want to go into the Christmas break being pissed off that, one, we have a losing streak, and two, we lost our final game before we get a week off. That would just eat at me the whole break. So if I'm a road team, I think we'll see on Sunday how the road teams do, and I think that'll be an interesting thing to look at. Give me Orlando in this contest.
Tulsa lost Wednesday night 5-3 against Kansas City at home.
Mm-hmm.
And they only have one more game before the Christmas break, and it's this one against Orlando. I don't think Orlando has success against Allen on Friday and Saturday night, but I think their skid ends on Sunday afternoon against Tulsa. As much as I hate to just choose the same teams all the time, that's an Orlando team who's bound to find something out and get things going the right way. I think you can catch Tulsa maybe napping. Having this much time between games is not typical for a lot of teams right now. And that will be the difference maker is if Tulsa comes into the game prepared because they've had the extra time, or if they come into the game a little step behind because Orlando's had those couple games in hand.
Yeah, and that'll be an interesting kind of rust versus rest deal that we don't normally talk about in the regular season. And you wonder mentality wise as well, like that is the final game before players go home for the Christmas break. Are the Oilers really checked into that contest or not? A pretty young team, I would think that they would be pretty dialed in there. Again, I think Orlando will win this game, but don't be surprised if Tulsa pulls one out of the bag here. And by the way, that Tulsa offense has gotten going here pretty quick here over the last couple of weeks, going from a mid 2.7s goals for per contest average up to a 3.15, 63 goals in 20 games. If in Orlando, by the way, 2.77 goals for in 22 games, that's an average. If this turns into a goal scoring clinic, give me Tulsa. But I think that there will be just enough defense played on the Orlando side of the house that they'll keep Tulsa in check.
You've got our picks. We want to hear yours. You can hit us up on Twitter at 3periodspod. Let us know who you think you've got winning this weekend. And like we usually say, if you're going to catch a game this weekend, make sure you snag a pick and throw it at us there on Twitter as well, because we want to know where you're watching games from.
Yeah, absolutely. Always good to get in touch with our fans. Let us know where you're watching from. And thanks for all the love for the podcast here as we've gone through the last couple of weeks. These have been some good podcasts to do over the last, really since we resumed back in July?
Yeah, pretty much.
These have been fun to do. So like we always say, make sure you show us your seats wherever they are from across the fruited plain here as we head toward Christmas. By the way, you are headed home here to Wichita for Christmas here on Friday. So
Yes.
you and the girlfriend have a safe drive home, and I probably won't see you before Christmas, but we'll do another podcast next week. I don't know what we're going to do it on. We probably won't have a guest. Maybe we'll give up. Maybe we'll give who we think will be the all-star representatives for each team.
There you go.
Who knows? We'll see. And then, or maybe we'll do something like that. But yeah, we're coming up close. Are you done Christmas shopping yet? Have you even started?
I haven't really started.
What is your mode going to be like? What is your thought process as we had 9 days to go? What are you planning on doing? Just leaning heavy on Amazon?
Well, last year the girlfriend worked Christmas Eve, so I popped up that morning and got all my Christmas shopping done that day. I'm sure
She's
there's
probably
probably lots of men in this world who agree with me. That was
yeah.
quite efficient, I guess. I don't think I'd do that again. I've got a whole week next week back home, so uh, I'm sure I'll find the time. Amazon will be heavily, favored right now. The,
Yeah.
the the big thing is I have to make sure I get them delivered to my parents' house in Wichita and not to the apartment here in
Ooh,
Evansville, or
yeah.
else they'll be sitting here on my doorstep for 3 weeks without me here.
Oh man, that would be brutal. That would be so brutal. Yeah, I've
That'll be
got
fine.
I've done the Christmas shopping. Well, I've got a couple more gifts because I'm gonna play Santa for our editorial staff. But I've got the wife bought for, and her gifts are sitting here beside the desk. So this weekend wife is working, so we're gonna wrap. Are you good at wrapping at all?
I think I'm pretty good at rapping.
I suck at it. You want to come over and wrap my presents?
I'm a firm believer that the most pieces of tape you ever need for rapping is 3.
You got to show me this strategy because I use probably 42 pieces of tape on my gifts. And like bless my wife's heart, bless her heart. She's like, I just want to know that you put the effort in. Wrapping the gifts, lets me know you put the effort in. That's her way of saying just showing me the effort. That just means as much to me as the gift. And
Hey,
that
42 pieces of tape, that's effort.
yeah. But man, I'm all thumbs. I'd rather have it be done if there was somebody who could wrap my gifts for me, I would pay them. I would have my mom come over, but no.
Well, you heard it here first, fans of the Three Periods podcast. If you're good at wrapping gifts, hit us up on Twitter because Matthew Harding will pay you.
Show us where you're watching the game from.
Or if you've got tutorials from MH, throw them on Twitter so he can see the right way to wrap a gift. That's how we want you to be interactive this week.
Yeah. Have a 72-page tutorial on wrap a Christmas gift. I need it, man, because I am all thumbs. I swear I'm all thumbs at it. But yeah, they'll get done. And we'll have a good Christmas. So if you all aren't listening next week, we hope you have a blessed Christmas, a Merry Christmas, and that you're able to get to see your family. This is a great time of the year and a reflective time of the year. Hope everybody takes a moment to do that. You, my friend, have a safe drive home. You're on the right side. I can't do it. Anyway, have a safe drive home, please. And I will talk to you when you get back here next week.
We'll try our best.
All right, man. That is going to do it for this edition of the Three Periods podcast. You should probably end this show. Your name's on the front door. So
episode 20. How about that?
That's right. Next time we're legal.
Absolutely. Pop a bottle. Maybe we make sure that's like the New Year's Eve edition. So next week can be like 20 and a half.
Ooh, that's right. We do have a New Year's Eve edition as well, where we look back at. I think we're going to do the big stories in the ECHL in 2020. So
yeah. 2021.
Yeah, 2021. Jeez.
Yeah.
Let's already over. 2020 again, please.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll next week will be 20.5.
There you go.
There you go. All right.
Well, one last thank you to the manager of officiating operations, Stephen Thomson, for joining us on the show. Great talk with him. We wish him luck in the next couple of weeks as they prepare for the All-Star Classic, and then, of course, down the road as they get ready for the playoffs. So one last thanks to him as well. For Matthew Harding, I'm Matthew Will. Thanks for joining us on another edition of the Three Periods podcast. We're almost legal. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you next week. You've been listening to the Three Periods podcast. Do you have a topic you'd like discussed? Hit us up on Twitter at 3periodspod with the hashtag TPP on FPH. And for the latest news on the ECHL and minor league hockey, visit fieldpasshockey.com.
They're going home. That's not true.